and the lands that they have traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection they have to this place, the land, the water, the sky, and all that live in, on, and above it. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we want to thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this place and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today. May they guide our actions and our decisions. We commit to learn, to educate, to honor sacred places, and to take action towards real truth and reconciliation. Miigwech. Council, any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Seeing that I'm head shaking or I'm being totally ignored, I'm going to take that as a no. And for everyone's information, we have, of course, this planning council, and that is followed by a committee of the whole. In the committee of the whole, we have two guests, one scheduled for 11 o'clock, one scheduled for 1 o'clock. So if we do not get through the planning council agenda before 11 o'clock, then we will take a break from it, go to the committee of the whole, and then go back to the rest of planning council if there's anything left. So I'm encouraging everyone to get it done before 11 because it's tidier that way, but we'll see how it goes. With that, open forum. Any open forum? None. Nobody. I'm getting ignored again, so I'm going to take that as a no. And now we have planning application staff reports and a couple of deeming bylaw applications. To our planning department, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The application is required as a condition of consent application B2321. The purpose of the consent was to sever a portion of the water lot abutting the subject property and have said properties merged. Lots on a registered plan of subdivision will always remain separately conveyable despite common ownership of abutting lands. The subject lands are made up of 2 whole lots on a registered plan of subdivision and are separately conveyable, being lots 20 and 20A on Plan M317. The deeming bylaw will remove the lots from the registered plan of subdivision, facilitating their merging and the merging of the property with the abutting water lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? And do I have a motion? Councillor Cooper, please.
Just curious with respect to this. So this is about a 2/3 of an acre, I guess. But in terms of the waterfront, it looks like there's shore road allowance and it has not been purchased and that's not required.
To our planner.
Through the chair, my understanding is that they do own the shore road allowance.
Well, the reason for my question is that it shows in Schedule a line between their property and the water, and that typically would be shore road allowance that had not been acquired. So I'm just curious. And if that is the case, are they not required to own their shore road allowance?
Research is being done.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing a shore road allowance on Schedule A, which is a severance sketch.
If I may, the line that you see along the shoreline, adjacent to this bright red marking, is a line that typically would denote shore road allowance. I don't see it to the right-hand side of the picture, but I see it adjacent to this lot and all the way along that shoreline, along a bay that seems to go to the, I'm assuming to the west. There's a line along that whole shoreline that is back from the watermark. You see what I'm talking about, Shania?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to look into the matter, if I could have a moment.
Certainly. And while she's looking into that, if I may, I'll have a question of our director then. The motion in front of me is that we want to deem existing lots not to be within a registered plan of subdivision, and whether or not ownership of a shore road allowance would be part of that.
Through the mayor to the committee. So the shore road allowance would not form part of that registered plan of subdivision, so it would not be necessary to deem that portion. Presumably, and this would be the deeming bylaw would be the instrument that the owner's solicitor would use to then merge the lands and enable them to merge also with any potential shoreline road allowance there.
Thank you.
So if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I'm asking the question, do you need to have it? And you said no.
No,
I
yes,
think.
they don't need to have the shore road allowance because the shore road allowance would not have been part of a subdivision, and here we're deeming lots to be not part of a subdivision. And the shore road allowance is already not part of a subdivision, I believe. Madam Deputy Clerk, do you have an answer for us?
Through you, your worship. So I just pulled up the reference plan and it looks like the shorewood allowance is underwater anyways, so we wouldn't sell it, so.
Apparently the shore road allowance is underwater. Weird and wonderful things happen.
Yeah, maybe it is, but if you read the provincial rulings around shore road allowance, the shore road allowance is deemed to be either related to the high water mark or in cases like this, which I assume is Little Lake, so it would be whatever the highest water is in that area. So I don't know why it's underwater. That doesn't tie in with the provincial legislation, but thank you. Guess it doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters for the actual motion in front of us, but we'll try Councillor Jarvis now.
Yeah, I think I asked this. I think we had this in Committee of Adjustment, didn't we?
Yeah.
I seem to recall seeing this before somewhere. And I'm a little confused. We show a high water mark as a line, obviously that is not straight, being regular shoreline, and then we have this very straight line that is, I guess, the current shoreline. We are in effect, I presume, working with a piece of land that could potentially be underwater at some point in time, and that doesn't seem to be an issue. Is that correct? Because the checkered line we're talking about is between that straight line, which is the current water line, and the line that is listed as the high water mark. Have I got that right? I know it's controlled water. It's controlled water. It's a controlled water body, right?
This is our discussion now, I think, is all for interest. And the reason I say that is because it's not what we are doing here is we've been asked to take two lots that existed in a subdivision that was created and say that no longer deemed to be part of that subdivision. And so,
yeah, you're right.
And those lots
I just think it's odd that we're
Yeah,
taking
it is a,
land that's potentially underwater. But, oh, hey, that's the way it is. Unless you have an answer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the lot that was severed was actually from a block on a plan of subdivision that is completely underwater, if that answers your question.
Yeah,
Whereas-
I think that's where I was getting at. Is I can't believe that we're dealing with potentially land that is
Yeah.
totally underwater. But hey, so be it.
Little Lake has some curious water lots based on history, and I think a lower water level before the dam was built, I
Yeah.
suspect.
Okay. Anyway, we're good.
Councillor Bocek.
Yeah, I was just going to offer the same insight that this was all farmland and there was a river running down the middle of it that wasn't more than 100 yards wide. And when the Trent Severn dammed it up, that flooded a lot of farms. There's houses, barns, everything else under there. And a lot of land did get buried in water, yet it's still deemed to be part of. So it's something that's been in motion for 100 years and we're not going to change it.
I'm glad somebody who was there at the time that it happened is able to confirm this for us. Appreciate that.
I happen to do a lot of research on our local area, as you all know, through my internet Facebook stuff. So yeah, this is something we've come across the last 10 years. It's been explained to us by our director of planning probably 10 times over the last 10 years. But I'm glad that Councillor Cooper brought it up so that we're rehashing it again.
All right. Councillor Cooper.
Just to clarify, the reason I brought it up, provincial legislation indicates that you cannot sell land that's underwater, period. I could read you the legislation. I have a copy of it here.
No,
Thank you.
we're not selling land in this case.
I know, but I'm hearing from another councillor that we shouldn't pay attention to these things, and I'm suggesting that we should. Thank you.
I have moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that Council enact bylaw 2024-022 to deem lots 20 and 20A, registered plan M317, to not be within a registered plan of subdivision, and that the clerk be directed to provide a certified copy of the deeming bylaw to the clerk of the District of Muskoka per section 50(26) of the Planning Act. Any final comments? All those in favor? I think I counted everybody's hands. Okay, thank you. That is passed. And now we'll do another one. Mr. Whitlib, I think this one's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Planning Council. This is, yes, another deeming bylaw application. It's for lands with the municipal address of 20 Island 980, also known as Deer Island. There was no recent planning application or other development related here. The lands have been developed for quite some time. However, the lands obtained those development permissions back in 2011. There was a deeming bylaw passed at that time to merge the lands, as well as site plan control was imposed on the lands. A site plan agreement was registered and the lands were developed for a single attached residential use. There's no development or new development proposed at this time. Nothing is proposed to change. What has triggered this deeming bylaw is the owner has advised, and there's correspondence attached to the staff report. He'd attempted to transfer the lands to a family member. His solicitor advised him that they encountered some difficulties with the 2011 deeming bylaw and the description it contained in terms of the way the lands were identified. So after some discussion with the owner, staff reviewed the situation, and it's unclear in terms of back in 2011 whether the process that staff embarked on clearly addressed what the owner had always intended. So we agreed to do another deeming bylaw today at no cost to the applicant. So that's part of the recommendation, that the fee for the deeming bylaw be waived. At the same time, The owner has provided staff with a legal description to be inserted into the deeming bylaw. We're hoping to obtain information directly from the owner's solicitor in terms of what the specifics of the description might be in order to ensure that this time we get it right in a way that meets the owner's needs for the transfer. The owner's been, after much correspondence, been clear with us that he wishes us to proceed with the description he's provided, and that's what's inserted into the deeming bylaw. So we have not obtained a legal description from the owner's solicitor, but we agreed to proceed on good faith. The only caveat I would like to point out to the committee, and that's included in the staff recommendation, is that should it not work this time for the owner, we have included in the recommendation that the owner be responsible for applying for and paying the costs of any future deeming bylaw should we find ourselves in a position where we have to go about this again. So we hope it works. The owner has done his own research into this. So again, we're proceeding on that basis. There's no harm in doing so other than the risk that we might be back here again. But again, there's no development being proposed. Nothing changes with respect to the lands. He simply wishes to transfer them to a family member.
All right, thank you very much. And this is basically redoing what happened in 2011 because for some reason that didn't quite work. No. Okay. Council, any questions? I will read the motion. I have moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Predko. Excuse me. Be it resolved that Council Act Bylaw 2024-023 to deem lots 1 and 2, Plan M22, formerly Township of Baxter, now Township of Georgian Bay, being all of PIN 48013-0147 LT, part of the original shore road allowance in front of Lot 37, Concession 14, former Township of Baxter, now Township of Georgian Bay, as closed by MT 84812, described as Part 1 on 35R-23145, being all of PIN 48013-0374 LT, and part of Lot H of Island 144 or Deer Island, as in DM 285705, former Township of Baxter, now Township of Georgian Bay, being all of PIN 48014-0314 LT, not to be within a registered plan of subdivision. And that the clerk be directed to provide a certified copy of the deeming bylaw to the clerk of the District of Muskoka per Section 5026 of the Planning Act. And that the deeming bylaw application fee and deposit be waived, and the cost of the processing the application registration of the deeming bylaw be assumed by the township, and that in the event that a further deeming bylaw is required, the applicant shall be responsible for all application fees, deposits, and legal costs associated with said bylaw. All those in favor? I got hands from everybody. Thank you. That is carried. Okay. And now we have a road naming request. And Mr. Vondar, I believe that's your report, please.
It is. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Planning Council. So earlier this year, the agent of Condominium File C2004-2 requested that the original proposed road names of Edgewater Court and Linda Lane be changed to Life's Way and Lyric Lane. So this vacant land condominium was draft approved on May 26th of 2005 and later updated on April 13th of 2022 for a total of 22 vacant land units that will share many common elements. So these proposed road name changes were reviewed by internal staff and the District of Muskoka. One of the large roles for the District of Muskoka staff is that they will check other addresses surrounding our area in the district to see if there'll be any conflicts. So first, Life's Way was reviewed, and in Muskoka Lakes, there's an existing road called Fife Avenue. Since there is a different suffix, there wouldn't be any confusion with this. And secondly, Lyric Lane was also reviewed, and in Gravenhurst, there was an existing road called Carrick Trail, which it follows some similar, but nothing close that would cause any confusion as well. As well, the original road names for Lifesway was recommended with an apostrophe by the agent. The District of Muskoka made recommendation that this apostrophe be removed as it is Bell Canada policy. And the reason for this is because it's more difficult for emergency dispatchers to type in the address if they have to click an extra button for an apostrophe. So in conclusion, it's recommended by staff that Street A be changed to Lifesway and Street B be changed to Lyric Lane.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Graziano.
Thank you, and through your worship to our planning staff. As this matter predates my term of council, I'm just curious to know, and not relevant to the renaming, but just an inquiry on where we stand with this. You know, I'm looking at the draft plan, and I think it's quite interesting, but I'm just curious to know if we have moved forward on this file at all. And B, I'm assuming that this is just a proactive renaming, or is there really an impetus for this request because the developer is now looking at being shovel ready and breaking ground? So where do we stand with this? Thank you.
To our planner, please.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Planning Council. So the current owner acquired this development approximately 2 years ago. Since his acquisition, that developer has been actively working to clear the various draft plan conditions. One of those conditions is this road naming that's being considered today. The developer is in the final stages of clearing conditions and registration of the township condominium agreement and the district condominium agreement. It's potentially going to be registered within the month. So it's very close to being shovel ready, as Councillor Graziano characterized it. And just for council's information, it's a 22 unit development. It's just north of us here on Lone Pine Road, backs onto Little Lake. 22 single detached dwellings on a common elements condominium road. So 22 singles on a short sort of hammerhead road that would be a private road.
Thank you. Councillor Predko, please.
Thank you, and through you, your worship, just a quick question for our bylaw department, and that is, since you had the feedback from the district and the change for the 911 calling convention, did the owner of the lands have an opportunity to review and agree with that apostrophe change, or is that I'm assuming they have?
Through your worship, there was no concerns. The agent was satisfied with that, as well as the district planner that's currently working on this file agreed that that was an easy change to make for the road name.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bocek, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, and if you'd allow me just a little bit of liberty to ask a question from Derek, our Director of Planning, related to this topic. I'm sorry, your mic's not on. I can't hear you.
Please go ahead.
Okay. As the counselor for the area and for the district, and perhaps I've been sleeping, but this is the first time that I've heard anything about the development being close to shovel ready. So my only question is the applicant in full compliance with everything, so you didn't need to come to council? In other words, is the development just falling within all the parameters of the zoning, so nothing needed to come to council? Because I was just shocked to hear just out of the blue that this is going to start to get underway. Thank you.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Planning Council. I think the last time council would have seen this development before them would have been in 21 or 2022, when a staff report was brought forward for an extension of draft plan approval to give the new owner more time to complete the conditions. So the zoning has been in place for quite some time. Councillor Bocek is correct. Everything is in place. It's just the final stages of clearing draft plan conditions, again, which include the road naming. The development, I should have mentioned, also includes some common lands along Little Lake and some shared dock facilities. Those are also the subject of a permit. from Trent Severn, that's all in place. So staff will very shortly be issuing the township's letter that's required to the district, advising that draft plan conditions within the township's responsibility have been cleared. So yes, this has been, I think through the passage of time, it's landed on council's table in fits and starts, and it's again sort of spanned across 2 owners, but the current owner, since his acquisition of this development, has very actively been working to bring it to fruition. The lands are already serviced. They were serviced by a previous owner. There's pipe in the ground. There was a stormwater management facility built. The required engineering information has been provided to the township and the district to validate and verify those services. There's some securities required through the condominium agreement process for some upgrades that the township's engineer has identified to the stormwater management pond. And there's going to be some easements registered to provide the township access over the storm pond for emergency maintenance, and an easement across the condominium road for emergency access for the fire department. So again, it's through the passage of time, it's landed on council's table on a number of occasions, but that spanned a number of years. That's probably why it doesn't ring any bells.
Thanks very much for that, Derek. And the reason for me asking is because I live right here and everybody knocks on my door to ask questions and I have no answers. So I'm just wondering if there's a file I can go to get, you've given me a lot of information today, but is there a file I can go to, or can I come and sit with you and we can review this? Just because I know when the sign goes up, Councillor Graziano and I are going to be inundated with what is going on, because it was just silent for so long. And I don't like to be that guy going, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I am moved by Councillor Graziano, seconded by Councillor Bocek. Be it resolved that the bylaw naming the private roads Life's Way and Lyric Lane be brought forward, and that the owner be responsible for all costs associated with installing appropriate signage. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, and now we're on to new business. Planning Advisory Committee. Councillor Hazelton, this is your item, please.
Yes, sir. And in the spirit of everybody reads the material, I probably don't need to revisit the whole topic. The purpose of this is the items that are listed here are items that have essentially been regurgitated, if you will, from last term. The items that we have directed to the Planning Advisory Committee have been mostly addressed. I have discussed with our Director of Planning for other items that he has as hotspots, and I know he's working on them, but we don't have them in front of us, and I think it warrants us to provide the Planning Advisory Committee a shopping list of items that we can then review with the Planning Advisory Committee and with our planning staff, so that we can discuss matters that are interest not only to the community but also to the planning department, and bring expertise through the planning committee back to Township Council.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Whitlip, do you have any comment on this before I pass it over to council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Planning Council. No, only to add that staff are happy to have these discussions and sort of work through the mechanics of some of the items that have been identified. And this matter is somewhat related to a staff report that will be considered under the committee of the whole, which includes a number of items identified in this motion, as well as other projects to assist in staff's prioritization of resources.
All right, thank you. Councilor Graziano, please.
Thank you, through your worship. with regards to a shopping list, there was a matter that Severn Township had moved with respect to floating homes, specifically a bylaw that I believe is in the final stages of enactment. And I'm wondering whether we can bring this to our planning committee to review what Severn has done, whether it's applicable to our specific township, and whether or not we can apply any nuanced wording or considerations to the actual bylaw suggestion and or what they're proposing. So what I'd like to do is bring it in, review it, discuss it, and then perhaps present back to council the outcome of that discussion through planning council.
I mean, just for your information, Mr. Whitliff was advised of the Severn Township bylaw 1 or 2 months ago. So I know it's on his file. I don't know if you want the planning advisory committee to consider it as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm in the hands of planning council and the committee. Happy to discuss it in either forum, see if there's merit and applicability and usefulness in taking that approach. So I don't disagree. The planning advisory committee could certainly be a useful forum in which to consider that should planning council wish to direct planning advisory committee to have that conversation.
All right, thank you. Councillor Predko, please.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Just a note, perhaps Councillor Hazelton. It does say that this is you're looking for a prioritized list of items. Councillor Hazelton's not over there. Prioritized list of items for consideration, and I think I look at this list and I would have a difficulty really prioritizing some of them. I would think that we maybe look at this as a list of opportunities that can be handled by the committee based on what other things are on their plate. So some of the, a condo road standard may be timely if we're looking at another condo development site plan, and if we're not looking at that, maybe it's not as timely. So I'd be happy to agree with this list. And I guess the prioritization, if that's important to the committee, I think we can agree to it, but I would be more agreeable to seeing this list as opportunities that the committee deals with on their opportunities and expertise rather than necessarily on a priority basis, but perhaps you have a different opinion.
Was that a question?
Councillor Hazelton.
Councillor Hazelton
provided this list.
So fully agree with your comments. I should have not had the word prioritized list in there. So you understand the process that we go through when we're producing an agenda for the Planning Advisory Committee. I do discuss things with Derek, and it is he and I who pick the items that are most relevant, and to a large degree, they're prioritized by Derek, given the urgency items that are there. So quite happy to remove the word prioritized and just use provide a list of items for consideration.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wojcik, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I was trying to lower my hand before you recognized me because Councillor Hazelton had explained exactly what I was going to ask him, whether it was directed or if the committee was directed by Derek and that the agenda was discussed and that the items were put on the agenda based on the discussion between our chair and Derek. So thanks for the clarification, Councillor Hazelton.
Okay, thank you. I have one question, and that is, I believe back in November, we as Planning Council had a list of priorities that included lifting H2 holds, Bill 109, green development incentives, and undersized islands. And we said for the Planning Advisory Committee for 23 and 24, are we to take that those items have been satisfied? Have you received information from them, or have we received enough information from those items that we now need a new list?
We have, I think, one item left on that list, which is the undersized islands. The other three, I think, have been dealt with and handed back to staff. So we are looking for more items that can be kind of selected on a meeting by meeting basis without having to continually come back to council for a new direction.
All right. Well, I think that's good news if you're making that much progress that you need more to do. All right. Councillor Cooper, please.
Sorry, I just had to remove my hand, but just with respect to the question you asked, Mr. Mayor, and this is to Councillor Hazelton. So the undersized island issue is still out there, is what I'm getting from what you've said. And it's not down on the priority list. I hope it's close to the top, because it's sort of an issue that can create a lot of trouble and, frankly, financial trouble for us as a township if we don't get it sorted out. Is that what you and Derek are hoping to deal with as soon as possible? Thank you.
Yes.
So in other words, this new list doesn't replace the old list, it adds to the old list.
Yes.
Okay. I think that clarification is important. Okay, I'm seeing no more hands. I've moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has a mandate that requires council to provide direction and a list of items for the committee to consider to then provide comment back to council. And whereas there may be new items that council, the planning department would like the planning committee to consider, now therefore be it resolved that the council of the Township of Georgia Bay does provide a prioritized list of items for consideration by the Planning Advisory Committee as follows. 1, functional services report to include wastewater servicing, potable water servicing, stormwater servicing and considerations, accessibility by fire, EMS, septic services and construction vessels, and accessibility for the above during high and low water. 2, site plans. When should the timing of a site plan be considered? Only after key servicing considerations have been reviewed and approved. How can site plans be made more public? Today they are in agreement only between property owner and township. 3, terms of reference for studies. The Site Evaluation Report, or SER, Fish Habitat Impact Assessment, Species at Risk Assessment, Environmental Impact Assessment, and question marks I presume would be others. 4, condo road standards. 5, trailer park site plans.
Mayor, if I may, we did agree to take the word prioritized out of that first, the now therefore clause.
Okay. All right, a list. Okay, so prioritize has been deleted.
Correct.
Done. With that deletion, all those in favor? And I got more than enough hands everywhere. That is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Moved by Councillor Graziano, seconded by Councillor Predko. Be it resolved, the Planning Council adopts bylaw 2024-024 to confirm the proceedings of the March 5, 2024 council meeting. All those in favor? And that is carried. And be it resolved, the Planning Council does now adjourn at 9:39. Is this a new record? I forgot what we did last time, but I think this is a new record.
I'm thinking I have enough time to swim 20 laps of the pool before we come back.
No, because I'm going to suggest. Oh, well, I'll do this first, and then don't go away. Now it adjourns at 9:39 p.m. until April 9, 2024 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor? And that is carried. We are adjourned. Now, I'm going to suggest that I know that the first scheduled thing for Cow is at 11, but Cow also has, if I can find my, it has a new business, sorry. Okay, then I'm going to suggest that we go into committee of the whole and do the staff reports, or 3 of them anyway, or start them. How about a 10-minute break and then we'll start committee of the whole? Okay, committee of the whole to start at 9:50, please.